Can you all hear me? Perfect. Thank you guys for being here. It's a very intimate venue. Love you all. Thank you for being patient. I'm about to introduce to the stage an iconic figure. This man has been in the game for 60 plus years, acting, voice acting, a trailblazer in the black community. I'd like to welcome Mr. Beau Billingslea.
You made me sound like I'm 100 years old.
Not quite, not quite.
95, so.
All right, well.
How's everybody out there, good? All right, it's great to see you. I was hoping I didn't come to an empty room, you know.
Never that, not for you. We had a lovely chat before you got here. We were worried that we lost you.
Oh.
And it's going to be a very boring interview without you, so I'm glad that you made it with us.
Okay. I'm actually a hologram.
Tech Ops, can we? Yeah, I'm sorry about that, guys. So I wanted to start from the beginning, right? Because there's a parallel timeline in which we almost don't get you as a voice actor, right? Like you captained the football team for UConn, and were offered an NFL contract, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, actually, I had letters. At that time, it was the NFL and the AFL. That was before they merged. And so, yeah, I'd be out on campus. And we had the football players, we had to sign a board even off-season so that the coaches could keep track of us. But when we get a letter from a professional team, they would put it up on the board. So I'd be out on campus, and one of my teammates would say, hey, you got a letter from the Cleveland Browns football club, you know. And I said, oh, all right. But I knew I wasn't available because I was in ROTC. Because of NOM, you know, practically all the men, unless you had some type of exemption, had to go into the service. So I didn't even return the letters. And then I got a delay when I graduated from college. You know, I was commissioned as second lieutenant in the Army. But then I got a delay to go to law school. And so I had 3 more years of college. So after 7 years of college, I was tired of that. Yeah. But anyway, yeah, I started my acting career while I was still in law school. I was in Connecticut, and I would go down to New York and, you know, do a little of this and a little of that.
Because I heard when you were on the football team there, that there was actually like a sort of glee moment in which there was something of bringing together the campus for a play. Yeah. One of my fraternity brothers was directing a play. It was for his master's program, and it was Emperor Jones by Eugene O'Neill. I don't know if you know the show, but Emperor Jones he was an emperor in his own mind, you know, not unlike myself. And so he was on a Caribbean island, and he was slowly losing his mind, but he was being chased by these ghosts, you know, what you call them, the haints. And he had a gun with silver bullets because that's the only way he could kill the ghosts, right? And so anyway, my fraternity brother, he told me there was a lot of strife on campus because of Vietnam. You know, the football players, we were all in our ROTC, we had drills, and then the theater arts and fine arts people on the other side of campus, they would pick at our drills. They actually pick at our football practices. And so there was a lot of conflict. And so my fraternity brother thought it would be a great idea that if the captain of the football team did a play. And so, but once he explained the show to me, I was thinking, he said, so I told him, so the way I understand this, I'm on stage alone a lot? He said, yeah, and you have monologues, and it's like, it's all about me? He said, yeah. I said, okay, I'll do it, you know. And so that's what happened. And it actually had that effect because, you know, it's easy to hate people if you don't meet them face to face. And so, like during intermissions, you know, that crowd and ROTC and the football players, they would interact, and it actually had the effect of calming the school down, and in those days at least, you know, the captain of the football team was the BMOC, the man on campus. And I remember there were a couple of times there were some semi-rioting. And so the president of the university, Dr. Babbage, would call me to come and speak with him to the masses to try to get things to calm down so people wouldn't be doing ridiculous things and hurting each other. So anyway, that just gives you a little taste of my experience. But I got bitten by the bug when I did that play. And a little sidelight, Emperor Jones had a sidekick. He was an Australian. His name was Smithers. But in the course of the show, my character dies. And so my mom and dad and my younger sister, my sister's 11 years younger than I am, so she was, she was young. And so when I died, she thought her brother had really died. And it was so sad. Apparently, she was crying, and my parents were trying to console her. Beau didn't really die. He didn't die, but he did. I saw him die. I saw him die. But anyway, that's just another little aside from that experience.
Perfect. I appreciate that so much. Now, I know you touched on this before, right? Because you were an officer in the military.
Yes, that's what ROTC, because I noticed that accent, right? So ROTC is Reserve Officers Training Corps. Okay. And so so anyway, so I took the training for 4 years while I was in the college, right. And then I was commissioned a second lieutenant when I graduated from college. Yeah.
And then you did practice law or taught law in Germany?
Well, yeah, I did. I taught law at the University of Maryland has branch like satellite universities for the military, around the world. At least they did. I assume they still do. So that while you're serving, you're doing your service in the military, you can also take classes at night, that type of thing. So I taught criminal law for the University of Maryland in Hanau, Germany, and in Aschaffenburg, Germany. So yeah, so I did a little teaching as well.
Perfect. So if this is just a hypothetical, by the way,
okay.
If one of us in this room was to potentially get into a situation with the law, we could rely on you.
Nope. Nope. There's a reason I'm sitting here and not in a law office, right? My son is doing that. He's doing the law thing. But I mean, I love the law. I was what you call a gunslinger, a trial lawyer. I did mostly criminal stuff as a defense lawyer, and they kind of forced me to do some prosecution toward the end of my service. But and I had cases from wrongful urination to murder, and everything in the middle. My last case was a murder trial, and it was in San Francisco at the Presidio, and my parents came out, to see me in action. And actually, they had a nice conversation with the judge, and he pretended that I was a good lawyer and told my parents that.
Well, I appreciate that. Now, I did want to touch on one thing, right? And I know that you said, you sound like you're 100 years old, and you're definitely not. Still kicking it, right?
Still kicking.
But you've been in the game for 60 plus years, right? How much differences do you see from when you first started to now? Like, how much has the industry changed as a whole, like casting, getting into a role?
Well, it's a lot different now. I got my Screen Actors Guild card in 1969, which is a couple years ago. And I remember I was actually in law school at the time, and our next door neighbor had a cousin who had worked with a producer. His name was Mike Todd, who was married to Elizabeth Taylor for a while. But he was directing and commercials. And so I wrote him a letter and told him I wanted to get into show business. And he said, "Oh, now's a good time. Come on down." So I went down to New York to spend a day with him. He was shooting a Van Heusen shirt commercial. And when we finished, we went to his office, and he told me what I had to do. Because I had no clue at all. But luckily, he was my angel. So he told me, you have to get headshots. You have to get an answering service, which was 7 Lively Arts for me, and because long before cell phones, right? And you have to join the unions. And he said, here's a little trick. You can't just walk off the street and join Screen Actors Guild. He said, but you can walk off the street and join AFTRA, American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. And then once you had that, your primary union, then you could go to SAG and join it. So that's what I did. And he told me, make sure you get paid up, because they were going to put me on a payment plan, right? But it was only $220. And even in 1969, $220 wasn't that much. So, but he said, make sure you pay it all, because they want to put you on a payment plan. And if you're not paid up,
with AFTRA, when you go to SAG, they won't accept you, right? And so when I did that, the guy that I was, that I was dealing with at Screen Actors Guild, he said, "Now, are you a paint-up member of AFTRA?" Because he thought he was going to get me in a trap, and I said, "Yep, I am." And yeah. And so it was $220 for your first union, and what they call your parent union, and then it was $110 for to join SAG. And I don't know what it is now, but it's ridiculous, And it's not easy to join a union so that you can do union work. I assume there's a method, but that was pretty easy for me, And so that was when my attitude about show business it was kind of wrong, but it was good for me because I was thinking, hey, this is easy. This is easy stuff, you know what I mean? And in my first audition, my first union audition, oddly enough, it was for a training film for the Army. They would do films like they would show, be careful during your holiday, like the 4th of July holiday, don't drink and drive, that type of thing. And so they would do these films. And so I was hired, and my audition was a total improv. And remember now, I hadn't done any, I didn't even know what auditioning was. I hadn't done any of that. And so I was supposed to be a Walter Mitty character, so I'm supposed to be walking into the barracks. And in my mind, I'm in scuba diving equipment, with flippers. And then so I'm walking in and telling the guys, we're going scuba, I just came from scuba diving, you need to come with me, and blah, blah, blah. So, and they applauded. And I thought that was just the way the business went. So when I booked a gig, and it was $92 a day, which that was pretty impressive for me, just walking there. I was saying, I got a gig for $92 a day, and $92 a day, and 69 was a couple of bucks. But when we got on the set, I was, expressing my experience to the other actors, and when I said they applauded my audition, they said, "Wait, what?" And they just knew that I was lying. That no, they don't applaud at auditions. I said, they applauded at mine. I assume that's just the courtesy of doing a performance. Said, no, there's no courtesy. You go in and you do your audition. They say, thank you very much, and get out of here. Right? But that was, once again, as I say, my experience was kind of Pollyanna, that I was thinking that this is so civilized. You do an audition and they applaud and say, thank you very much, Beau, you were wonderful.
Have a good one. Yeah.
Have a good life. We're not hiring you, but...
I appreciate that insight. The best way I could put this next question is for a lot of people in this room, I think it's just me, right? One of our first animes was Naruto, right? And so for me, that was my first anime ever. And seeing characters like Killer Bee, the SoundCloud rapper, and A, that you voiced.
Thank you. Since I'm sitting here, thanks for mentioning me.
But for me, those two were the first time I got to see characters on screen that looked like us, right? Mm-hmm. So that's not your only roles like that, and you've been acting, like I said, on the screen as well. How does it feel to be a trailblazer of sorts for the Black community, in that sense?
Well, I feel very honored, obviously, because I get quite a bit of feedback, to say that I was a pioneer. But I'll have to say, I didn't feel like a pioneer, and when I first started my career, there were very few characters of color that were drawn, and so. But luckily, I was with these producers became aware of me, who disregarded the color of my skin, and so they just called me in to do characters. I did a show called Legend of Black Heaven, which probably nobody's ever heard of. Oh, OG?
Yes.
Yeah. Legend of Black Heaven, the lead character was OG, who was an office worker in Japan, and at night he was saving the world with his music, So I was a rock musician, just playing my bass guitar and saving the universe. And I did a number of characters, and it had nothing to do with the color of my skin, because if they were closed-minded like that, I never would have had a career, because I never would have started.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So from that standpoint, I think I had it very easy, and also I became known because of my on-camera career
that I was asked to do gigs as opposed to auditioning. You know, of course, come full cycle now, I still get asked to do, but you know, I have to audition. I said, I don't want to audition. You know who I am? They said, yeah, that's why we're asking you to audition. You know,
Yeah.
we've seen your work, pal. So you know.
I appreciate that. So I'm not gonna get through this. So you voice, as you're most like famously known for in our community, you know, the lovable yet gruff Jet Black, right? Cowboy Bebop made its debut over 20 years ago, right? And it's still ever surging in its popularity. What do you think keeps people so entertained by it? What do you think keeps people engaged by Cowboy Bebop after all this time?
Well, you know, literally every part of the show. The writing is wonderful. Like Jet's storylines are just wonderful. Like when he goes back to Ganymede and he revisits his past and he tosses the watch into the water and puts his past to rest. Then there's also Mushroom Samba, you know, where I never thought I would voice a character in anime that was stoned, you know. And being a method actor.
Is there something you want to tell us?
But no, it was really cool. You know, I don't know if you remember that line. He's talking to his bonsai trees, and then he blurts out, "Who am I anyway?" You know, and I just love that. You know, Mushroom Samba was kind of stereotypical in a way. You know, yeah. The brothers were drug dealers. You know, but you know, I didn't have anything to do with the writing, so that's not my fault.
I believe you. I believe you. No.
But no, I was going to finish that. You know, the writing is awesome. The stories are, you know, there's a reality to them that people can relate to. And as a voice artist, I could relate to that because any project, no matter what the genre is, if it's radio drama, if it's stage, if it's screen, feature films, television, it all starts with the writing. If the writing is bad, the project is going to go nowhere. And no matter how brilliant the actors are, you can't save bad writing. So that's where we start with Cowboy Bebop. And then I can't even talk about the music. It's just crazy. When I first, you know, I started listening to more and more of the music, I was thinking, well, there's some brothers down in New Orleans who are, you know, writing this stuff. Yeah, baby, you know, blah, blah, blah. And then I find out it's Yoko Kanno, you know, this young Japanese woman who's writing all of this fantastic music that is appropriate to our culture because obviously Bebop was written for our culture. You know, it's a Japanese show, but it's our culture all the way through, you know, with our music and, you know, the weapons, just everything is our culture. So they wrote it for us, and I don't know if you're aware, it was almost a throwaway when they sent it here because it was not originally successful in Japan. And they pulled it before they even aired all of the episodes. But then it became a hit here, and then all of a sudden Japanese, because, you know, the Japanese, like a lot of countries around the world, they kind of admire our culture and they want to mimic our culture. And there's this love-hate with Americans, you know, around the world, which I experienced when I was in the military. I was stationed in Germany for just over 4 years. And it was so funny how I remember when the dollar would lose some of its value versus the German mark. There were these people, because we had a lot of civilians working in our operation, and I remember going to breakfast. We'd have breakfast at work, right? And this Australian who worked for the American government, he says, what do you think of the dollar today, eh, Beau? And I told him, I said, you realize that, you know, you're getting paid in American dollars so that when the dollar goes down, you're losing money, right? But it didn't even matter to him. He says, yeah, but the dollar's down, isn't it? And I was just thinking, this is such a complicated relationship with our country. You're working for our country, but you're happy when the dollar is devalued, you know.
I relate a little bit.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, you son of a ganyo. You people over the pond. Okay, sorry.
No comment.
You know, I just lost myself. I'm sorry.
You're fine, man. I appreciate that, you know. And I do have a question that may or may not lose you half the room. Do you
I
want
can't afford to lose half the room, man.
But if you answer correctly, you keep the room. So it just
All
depends.
right, you're putting me on the spot.
Now it's up to you.
You know, I have hit people that I can call if this doesn't go good.
Next question.
Okay. Nice one. I like that. I like what you did there.
It's not too bad, but I have to ask, right? Because Cowboy Bebop has one of, if not the most successful dubs of all time, right? And being that it's an anime, I have to ask you, what is your stance on the dub versus sub debate? Which one do you think is better?
Is what? The
Dub-
best?
Yes, dub or sub, because...
Well, let me put this in context. You're talking to a voice actor who dubs anime into English.
Yes.
So how in the world would I say subs?
wanted to
I would put myself out of work. Am I a dummy here or what?
I just wanted to see-
yeah, you know what?
I wanna see
I love the
something
subs. The dubs, not so much, but I just love those subs, right? No, I'm going to go with dubs.
I want to make sure you stuck to your guns. That's all. Just making sure,
Yeah,
just
I'm
making
going to
sure.
go with dubs.
Can you tell the hit people not to mock me? For...
No. We're going to mock you. You know, you're up here with a mic in your hand, pal. You're going to pay the price. Sitting on this couch with Jet Black.
Lisa's going to sub in for me instead. So that's cool.
You're on the hook, pal. You can't get out of this now.
Next question. So, with Jet, for example, right, is a character that you sort of see like hyper masculine values sometimes, but you also see a softness, right? Where you see him like tending his bonsai tree, or how he interacts with his crewmates, right? Do you feel like that reflects you as a man yourself, or are there characters that you've voiced in other roles that more reflect you as a person or as a father?
Well, as an actor, vulnerability is very important. And, with my background, having played football and practiced law and was in the military and all of that, I was kind of macho. But I didn't realize how macho I was, and which is, and that's not a good thing, but I didn't realize, I even had a macho walk that I didn't realize. Yeah, and I was in class, and actually it was a singing class for actors to deliver a song. But the way it started was we would stand in the wings, and then our instructor, David Craig, who he'd say, okay, come on out, and I'll do it for you.
And we need a demonstration.
I was behind the curtain, right?
Okay.
And so you're out there, all the classes out there, and our teachers out there, and he says, okay, come out, Beau. And I went, go back. I said, I took 2 steps onto the stage. He says, go back. He said, okay, you ready? Come out. And I walked out. He says, go back. I said, oh, gosh. And I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing. And so he asked the class, do you see what the problem is, everybody? And everybody said, yeah. He said, too macho, Beau. And I had no clue. I thought, I'm walking down the street, but I'll do it toward you. And it was like, apparently I was like, I was that guy, So it took me a while, but what he had to do was bring me down to 0, but I had no clue. And so he was a good teacher because he was reflecting to me, how I came across. And as I say, I had no clue. But he brought me down to 0, and I was very appreciative because he gave me a lever to hold on to access my vulnerability as a human being. Because as actors, you have to play all the keys on the keyboard, And there are actors who play macho roles, and that's it. A lot of the action guys, but even in the action adventure genre, they all have a vulnerability.
Yes.
They all have a vulnerability, which is pretty cool. So I don't know. I forgot the question.
Yeah, what you were saying was perfectly fine. But
Yeah.
The question specifically was, are there any characters that you've voiced that most reflect you as a person, in your vulnerability, or how you are as a father, or things like that?
I think actually, and I go back to Jet, because I have 2 children, a son and a daughter, and raising them, it was kind of like being on the Bebop with Faye and Spike, but especially my son, he was kind of a wild guy. He'd be on top of the refrigerator, and so I'd say, "What are you doing up there?" And he'd like, "What?" It's like, doesn't everybody climb on top of refrigerators? I said, "You know what? You're going to have to come down. We'll have a little chat." And I explained, there's floors are for walking on, refrigerators are for opening and getting food out, but not for climbing on top of, right? But anyway, yeah, Jet, and Jet trying to kind of being the stabilizing factor on the Bebop was kind of cool, kind of like in my personal life with my son and my daughter. And what comes to mind now is that episode, I don't remember the name of the episode, where Faye stole all the Woolongs. She took all the money from the safe. And then what does she do? She gets in trouble and calls for help. So, but of course, you gotta help Faye. You gotta help Faye whether she stole the Woolongs or not.
I appreciate that. So, how many of you in here are voice actors or aspiring voice actors? Do we have any? We have a couple.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. So for them specifically,
My coworkers.
there we go. Not to exclude the rest of you, you're all brilliant. Don't get me wrong, right? But what's your personal method of finding your voices for your characters?
Well, in any genre in acting, an actor tries to find a part of himself that is a part of the character. That's of course that's where you start. Now, like in video games, and there's not too much of me that goes, So I don't like do that at home. It's like,
I would hope not.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think I would be sleeping in the back outside if I did that. So there's. In our genre with the voiceovers, there's, and especially in video games, the screaming, the ridiculous behavior. But you always try to find something within your core and your heart that matches with the character. I did a miniseries in the 80s called North and South, and it was a Civil War epic. And so my character was Ezra. He was an enslaved person. So, and this was very poignant for me because we started filming in Charleston, South Carolina, where I was born. And yay, Charleston people, yeah, Roper Hospital. And so, and so my parents came down to see me on the set for the first time. But portraying an enslaved person, I really felt a responsibility. It was more than just a role, right? We were filming in actual slave quarters where enslaved people lived, in the dirt floor and just all of that. And so I meditated. I did everything I could to inhabit the soul of an enslaved person. You're thinking about, let's do the exercise. Pretend in your mind you're an enslaved person, and you try to think of what do you have to look forward to. What are your thoughts? What goes through your thoughts and emotions at night when you go to bed? You have to work 6 days a week from sunup to sundown, and then you have Sunday off, maybe to do a little of your personal business. And, of course, you're not getting paid. And then you start over Monday, and the guy you're working for is a slave master who has the power of life and death over you. And if you have a child, you're concerned that the child is going to be sold off. So, because our families were just broken up because we were chattel, we were property, and so that role was I was full of mixed emotions about it. First of all, it was a great gig. I was getting paid great money, and it was it was a couple of months' work. It was starting off in Charleston. We went to Mississippi and Louisiana. And there was some stuff in Arkansas. And my parents came to visit down to Charleston, and we went to my grandparents' grave. And
which was a common grave, I say one grave, and we did some sightseeing. And I remember at one point, we were on the set, and they were just so great to my mom and dad. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Billingslea, can we get you anything to drink, to eat? And, you know, just treated them like a king and queen. And I remember my mom looking to my dad, and she said, I never thought I'd come back to Charleston like this, you know, because at those days, things weren't really great for us when they got me out of there, right? Because I grew up in Connecticut, because my parents wanted to, you know, the best for myself and my sister. But that role was profound because of, as I say, I felt like it wasn't just a role, that I was representing a lot. And that I had to be as true. And so I spent a lot of time depressed, I have to admit. As I say, I was happy to have that gig and pay good money. My mom and dad came down, but then again, I had to inhabit the soul of an enslaved person who, you know, literally had no freedom and could be whipped. You know, they'd whip us like we were children, you know. So
that mindset ended up taking over.
Yeah, it was difficult. I mean, I remember there were times that I would tears would just stream down my face. You know, Forrest Whitaker and I, we would do a prayer. We'd say a prayer before our scenes, and because I was the good enslaved person, he was the bad enslaved person. You know, and and now on the other side of that coin, I did a show on Nickelodeon called Jess Jordan. Does anybody remember that show? Jess Jordan was a wonderful show. It was a sitcom. I ran a diner. I lived upstairs over the diner, and my newly divorced daughter comes to live with me with her 2 kids, my grandkids, and we had capers. And as I say, it was a sitcom, so we just had a lot of fun. And they had this little gimmick. The little JJ he was a stand-up comedian when he started when he was 12, right? That was basically his show, although I was a series regular. But they would have a space where he would look at the camera and say, freeze, and the scene would freeze, and he'd pop out, and he'd pop out, and he'd talk to the camera and say, if your mama really loves you, she'd let you do whatever you want to do, right? My mom is terrible because she doesn't let me do whatever I want to do. Okay, bye. And he popped back into the scene. And that's early in the show. And then later in the show, you know, the lesson is learned. He'd pop out and say, freeze, like that. He said, now I understand. A good mother doesn't let you do everything you want to do because you're just a kid and you don't know what's good and what's bad. So make sure you listen to your mom and your dad. And he'd go back, right? And it was such a cool show, and all colors of people were in the show. Justin Chong, I don't know if you're aware of him, but he played one of JJ's friends. So he was a Korean American, and there was a Latino who was also his best friend. And so it was a wonderful show. And the best part about it was, my granddaughter, who was, I think, 8 or 9, she would do extra work on the show. And so, I mean, working with your family is just, you know, it's just the best. Yeah, and she'd be running around, and she would call me. She said, well, Papa, when am I going to come on the set? And I said, well, you know, talk to your mom. You have an open invitation. So she would come even when she wasn't working. But the last show of the first season, the writers wrote a food fight. Remember, I run a diner, right? So the writers wrote a food fight. And as it happened, my granddaughter was working that day, and because she was a minor, my daughter had to be there with her. And one of the adults who's extra didn't show up, and so they asked my daughter if she wanted to do it, and so she did. And so there was this scene where we're sitting at one of the tables in the diner, and my granddaughter's getting handfuls of cake and smushing them on my head and in my face and pouring Kool-Aid on my head. And at one point she looked at her mom and said, Mommy, this is so much fun, right? And grabbed a handful and smush, and I'm like, yeah, right, pouring Kool-Aid on my head. And it was just like the best time. It was the best time. We still laugh about that. And we have these photos where they just like literally
I'm covered with food. Right?
The worst shower of all time.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it was just so much fun, and to see her running around, because I was a series regular, she felt like she was special, right? So, which she was, but
VIP access and
yeah, that was a fabulous experience too, and I would people would stop me on the street to say, I love that show because it was a show that I could watch with my child. Because there are so many shows. It's either an adult show or a children's show, but not not both. But it was originally written like there was crossover. So I would do capers with like my granddaughter. Like remember we lived upstairs, right? And so there was one show where my granddaughter was moonlighting, and she was making peanut butter and jelly sandwiches and selling them to her friends in the diner, right? So I heard some commotion, so I get up and I go downstairs, and I say, well, Momo, what are you doing? Oh, first of all, they hid, right? And so I went into the fridge, and I got some ice cream, and I'm leaning against the counter eating the ice cream. I said, Momo, I know you're here with all your friends, so you might as well come out of hiding. And so they all slowly came out. And I said, now what are you doing? And she explained, we're selling peanut butter PB&Js, right? And so my character goes, oh, you want to cut me in? And so we were participating together. And then the police came, meaning my daughter. My daughter, she came down, and then so when she came down, she knew something was up. So we all hid, and so I'm hiding under a table, right? And she said, Daddy, come out. And then so I was busted like all the other kids. So we all stood up, and that just gives you an idea of the fun and the joy of that show. And it was just a remarkable experience because it would have been anyway without my granddaughter, but with her there, it was so. And let me tell you about my granddaughter, our relationship. Yeah. She was like, when she was like 3 or 4, we were eating breakfast, and I would snitch a piece of bacon off of her plate, And then one time, I went in to snitch, and she grabs my hand like that, and she says, how would you like me to break your bones, my friend? I said, oh, okay. All right. She says, well, keep your hands out of my plate. I said, okay, all right. I said, and so, and one other little story about her, whenever the family would get together, and we still do it, I would give them what I call the cut of the take, right? Like I robbed a bank or something, and I'm going to give them the cut of the take. Right. And so I remember one time, and I would always give the cut of the take at the beginning of the visit. And this one particular time, I forgot. And so, and it would be like $10 when she was younger, then it became $20. Now it's $40, Pretty soon I'll have to write a check. I don't know where that's going.
Yeah.
But so this particular time, I forgot. And then like later in the visit, and I said, oh, I forgot to give Taylor the cut of the take. So I said, and I call her Precious. I said, here, Precious, here's your cut of the take. And she went, I'm afraid I'm going to have to charge you a late fee, Papa. I said, wait, what?
In this economy?
Yeah. And then she was, I don't know, I think she was like 10 or 11 or something like that. And my daughter said, Taylor, don't do that. I said, no, let's see how this plays out. So I said, well, okay, what's the late fee? She said, it's another cut of the take. So I had to give her 20 and then another 20, right, to get out of the doghouse.
No more late fees.
Oh, she's such a precious human being. She's 26 now, and she's working on. She just finished the show Bob Hart's Abishola, and on CBS, and she's working on Last Man Standing and stuff. I tried. With my kids, I didn't encourage them to go into the business, because, it's like you have money, you don't, you have, all of that stuff. And so I figured if they wanted to go into show business, they'd find it. If it was in their blood, they'd find it. And so my daughter ended up being a CPA. She's a comptroller of a corporation. My son's a practicing attorney in L.A. Doing labor law. But my daughter's daughter, she got bitten by the bug because of Just Jordan.
Right.
She experienced that all,
Life
you know,
on the
on being on the set, and my daughter said the second season we did it with a live audience, and we'd film on Friday nights, and my daughter told me, see, at one point, because you know you have, I don't know if you're aware, when you do a sitcom, they have an audience, basically a stand-up comedian who warms up the audience, and they have like dance contests and singing contests, and they hand out T-shirts, and he tells jokes, and to get the audience warmed up so they're ready to laugh. And so at one point, my granddaughter says, "See, Mommy, I want all of this." And when my daughter told me, I said, "Uh-oh, we've lost her.
Yeah.
She's lost. She's doomed for the business." And that's where she went to Occidental College, and where President Obama went for I think a couple of years, and she got a degree in filmmaking, and so now she's in the business. So I don't know, what was the question?
I'll be honest, I forgot myself, but
Okay.
but I've loved listening to you talk, and I appreciate everything that you just said as well. Now, before I get distracted, because I just realized what time it is, how much time do we have left until the end of this? Hold on. Do you want, thank you, because I didn't want to be unprofessional and whip out my phone. So what we're going to do is, are you okay with taking a couple of questions from the audience?
No, I don't want to do that. Of course, I'll take questions.
All right, I'll just yap away for a couple minutes. No, but yeah, so what we'll do is Miss Lisa over here. Can everyone say hello to her?
Hello.
All right, so we're going to line up down the middle behind her, and you'll tell her your question, and then come up to the microphone and ask Beau himself what your question is.
I don't want any hard questions.
Give him all the hard questions. He's been trying to get on my bad side.
And my hearing isn't great from the military, so you might have to help me understand it. Okay. Yeah. Hello.
Hello. It's a pleasure having you here. Total honor.
Thank you.
Is there any guilty pleasure TV shows or movies that you watch that you would have liked to been in, now or in the future?
Well, you know, I'm a member of the Star Trek family, but any Star Wars movie.
Oh, no.
Don't tell her. That's just between us guys, okay?
I've been recording this whole time, so it's out there.
So you and Giancarlo Esposito together.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. We would kill it, man. We would kill it.
Thank you.
All right.
Nothing would get done on that set.
I know. We would just be cutting up all the time, right?
Hello.
Hello.
I was just wondering what either was your favorite scene or favorite episode to record on Cowboy Bebop?
Well, as I mentioned, I enjoyed Mushroom Samba because, you know, I got to pretend to be stoned. And of course, when he goes back to the Ganymede, you know, revisits his past. But I will tell you that, you remember Toys in the Attic?
I was just going to say that's my favorite episode.
Is it really?
My dad, he's the one who got me into Cowboy Bebop. And that was his childhood thing. And he watches Toys in the Attic like at least once a week.
Oh, is that right? That's so awesome. That's so awesome. You know, that's the one show, whenever the cast together, I think we've done it in D.C., Birmingham, Alabama, and L.A. as a fundraiser when there was the tsunami in Japan to raise money. And so we did a live reading of Toys in the Attic, you know. And of course I would do Ein, you know. But yeah, Toys in the Attic is also fun, but that's special to my heart because, you know, we long finished doing shows. So for us to get together on the stage and to just read a script like that, that's really a lot of fun.
It's a really good episode. It makes him laugh every night.
Yeah. Good questions. Good question.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi. I wanted to know what Beau Billingslea in 1998, when you're in the studio, in the Cowboy Bebop studio for the first time, how was that feeling going into the studio, meeting your co-stars? What was that all like for you?
It was awesome. I didn't, of course, at that time, I didn't realize what the show would become, but
Right.
I also did not know what the show was about. So when I went into the booth, Mary Elizabeth said, "Okay, Beau, we have to have to figure out the voice of your character. And I thought, Cowboy Bebop, I thought it was about cowboys. And so I was going, I'm going to spit, what's going on here? And she said, no, that's not. She said, cowboys in our universe are bounty hunters, and the Bebop is your spaceship. I said, oh, okay, cool, like that. She said, so why don't we do something like this? She said, why don't you just use your voice, and then we'll tweak it a little bit. But, as a voice actor, who wants to use their own voice? Like that. I said, well, that's boring. Who gives it? Maybe he has an Irish accent. I said, he said to me, you imagine Jet with an Irish accent, but anyway, so that's what we did, so constantly ended up with this, hey, Spike, it's time to eat. Having bell peppers and beef, But it was an awesome experience because as time went on, we started to realize how special Cowboy Bebop was, and especially when we got exposed more and more to the music, and that's when we were thinking, this is some pretty special stuff here. But of course, I never realized, imagined that in 2024, you guys would care about that project, but I feel so blessed and so lucky to have been asked to do it. And I think all four of us, the main cast, we were just asked to do it. We didn't audition for it. But it was a very special time in my life.
That's amazing. Well, we're thankful for it, for you joining as well. So
thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
So as a voice actor, what do you do to create genuine emotional response in your characters?
Well, as I said, in all acting, you try to find something in yourself that's synonymous with the character. And if, with emotional scenes, the way I work, and I think a lot of actors work that way, you go to a place from your own personal experience. And that makes it real. I remember I did an episode of this show called The District. It was Craig T. Nelson. It was a cop show, and I did a guest spot on it. And I remember they're asking that when you audition, they wanted the tears from the actor when he auditioned. And of course I did, and I booked it. And the last scene, it was a pretty poignant show. I was the father of an undercover black cop who was shot by a white cop. And so it was serious business, right? And one of the last scenes that we shot was on a Friday night, was we were all at the hospital, and we get word that my son has died. And of course, having a son, that's built in. But sometimes, you get into an emotional place where it's hard to get out of it, and then so the tears are just streaming and streaming. And we had technical difficulties, and it seemed like there was always some reason where we had to do it again, and we had to do it again, and do it again, do it again. And my character, the scene didn't start with the tears. The scene was like, we're waiting, and then we get the word. So I had to, do that loop over and over and over again. But by that time I realized that I needed to study acting, because when I started, I was one of those guys, I'm Beau Billingslea, It's acting, how hard can it be? I'm always successful in everything I do. And then of course I realized, wow, this stuff isn't that easy. But that's where I go to if I have had personal experience. And that's one of the things about, I feel that people who know that they want to be an actor right from the beginning and pursue that, they have like a leg up in one way, but another way they don't if they don't have the life experiences. Having done a lot of different things, been exposed to a lot of different people. I was exposed to a lot of people in the military from all over the country, and with different points of view and all of that. And having played football, and my football career wasn't always successful. I fumbled the ball at Yale Bowl and lost the football game, And in the paper they said, Billingslea, GOAT of Yale game. And it didn't mean the greatest of all time. GOAT was, I was the GOAT. I lost the game for the team, right? And it was really funny because, you know, your teammates, they empathize with you because, but for the grace of God goes them. Everybody makes mistakes. So nobody gets mad at somebody who makes a mistake. But so we'll be out on campus and passing, you know, just passing in the day, going to class. My teammates would say, "Hey, GOAT," you know, just reminding me about, you lost that game for us, pal, you know. But yeah, having those life experiences, I feel, have given me kind of a leg up on bringing real emotion to my characters. And there, you know, there's a saying, "No acting, please." You know, we want no acting, please. And basically, acting is reacting, which means you have to be a good listener. You're listening to people. So, and if you're a good listener in life, that'll take you a long way to being a good actor. So that's a long answer to a short question.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Beau. I hope you're having a great con. Aside from Cowboy Bebop, there's another classic anime that you did, Outlaw Star. And in that anime, when you worked on it, you have the very infamous quote of, "A boy has the right to dream." Now, when you're working on something that's like regular voice acting versus narration, like what you did with Outlaw Star, do you approach the voice acting differently? Are you directed differently that makes it so iconic or anything like that?
Same way. Same way. You'll probably remember, hopefully you remember, "A boy has a right to dream." Well, my only regret about that is it says "a boy," because, you know, when I first read it, you know, I wanted to change it, and they wouldn't allow me to change it because I wanted to say a child or a person to include, you know, the young girls. But no, it's the same thing. I mean, if you legitimately engage what you're trying to do, the emotional level and emotional content of what you're trying to do, the audience will hear it. You know, the audience, and if you're phoning it in, the audience will hear that too. And so, but as I say, that I've been lucky to voice words that are really good scripts, that the writers have done some good stuff. And so I was just pleased to see that it was so well written, except for the word "boy." Because I felt that we're cutting out all of the girls, you know, cutting out all of the girls in that. And of course, the culture that it came from was kind of different from our culture. That's all I'll say about that. And but the girls are just as important as the boys. And I assume now, if that was written, it would be written to include the girls. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But the same approach. Same approach.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Yeah.
Thank you. Just a quick heads up, guys. We have 5 minutes left, less than that. So we're going to do a bit of a speed round if we can.
Okay, I'll answer quickly.
I believe in you. No, you're good.
I'll speed talk it.
Hello, Beau.
Hi.
So I know you work with Shinichiro Watanabe with Cowboy Bebop. So, and there was also his new project, Lazarus. So is there any, like, are you open to a chance that, like, if you're willing to accept a role if given to you?
Of course, you know, unless it's XXX, I don't turn anything down, man. You know, I just love doing this stuff. You know, even if it's not great writing, I figure I can make something out of it. But it's such a joy. It's such a joy to do what we do.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
All righty.
Hi.
I've got beard envy, man.
Yeah, what can I say? It grew on me.
Okay.
You've had such a long career in doing everything from voice acting to actual acting to narrating. Is there anyone that you haven't worked with that you would have actually liked to work with?
I've never worked with Denzel Washington.
Really?
Yeah, I'd love to work with Denzel. Maybe I figure I'd teach him a few things.
That would be an awesome show or movie to see. Thank you.
Thank you for telling your experience on Just Jordan. I grew up with that. But
Looking good, man. Looking good.
Thank you. I you too. But in regards to your time and working with J.J. Abrams and Star Trek, can you tell me just your favorite on-set moment in that experience? I know it was quick, but like
With J.J.?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, if you don't know, J.J., I did Star Trek Into Darkness, was J.J. Abrams' second film. And, you know, J.J. was a great director to work for because as an actor, you want to please the director, right? And you bring what you can. But if the director doesn't have a clear vision of what he or she wants, and if he doesn't have the language skills to communicate it, it's difficult to work with. So JJ was very clear in what he wanted, and he was very good with the language, so he could express, what he wanted. But there was one scene. A lot of my stuff was cut out of that movie, and I don't know what they were thinking.
I saw the
but,
deleted scenes.
But I had a stunt double. I worked 3 weeks on that film, and the stunt double, when the rocket hits the conference room, my double, so he's under a pillar. And so, they do him. He does all the dangerous work, and then he leaves, and I slide under the pillar, right? So, and I remember JJ coming up and looking down at me and say, "Beau, this will be in the film." No, it was not in the film. It was not in the film. But my wife, everything was secretive shooting that film. We never used the ST word. We had a code when we came to the kiosk at Sony Studios. And we had these long black capes with hoods to cover our costumes. We were using 3 different sound stages at Sony, which was, used to be MGM. And so we had base camp where our dressing rooms were, makeup and hair and wardrobe were there. And then they would take us to the sound stage by a golf cart. And so we would cover up in these black capes and so that nobody on the lot would be able to see these great characters. But this particular day, it took me I don't know how long it took me. It took a week and a half to get permission to have my wife come on the set. We couldn't have phones on the set, and but they finally gave us a driver in a van. And she came that one morning. I wasn't working in the morning. I was working in the afternoon. And so the van took us around, and she got to walk on the bridge of the Enterprise to go to Med Bay, to go to the transporter room. And she was really, really excited. I was too. But anyway, she had a luncheon engagement, and I was working that day. So Peter Weller and I were in the golf cart going, and we were walking up down the soundstage, and so Peter says, "Steven's here," and I said, "Oh, Steven who?" He said, "Oh, Spielberg." I said, "Oh, cool." I said, "Make sure I want an introduction, man." So I got you, because Steven Spielberg was J.J. Abrams' mentor. But I mean, we're running out of time. As more stories to tell. Well, one really quick story with Peter Weller. I was in makeup, and I hear this. And I said, Bruce Greenwood, I said, what is that? He said, "Oh, that's Weller on his trumpet." I said, he's practicing his trumpet? And he was in his dressing room, but sound carries, right? And so when Peter came, I was introduced to him because I had never met him. And then I presumed to say, "Peter, I want to give you a bit of advice." He said, "Yes, Beau." This is a guy who's never seen or heard of me, right? So, and he says, and so I told him, I said, "Scales are for at home, songs are for the public." So I told him, "The next time I hear that trumpet, I want to hear a song. I do not want to hear your scales." And he cracked up, and we've been good friends ever since. All right. So anyway,
Thank you.
Do we have time for one more?
one more, quickie.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Hey, thank you for getting me in. I appreciate the question, and also thank you for your service on Memorial Weekend.
I appreciate that.
I guess my question is, I don't know much about acting or voice acting in any kind of form or fashion, but how do you select the role? I'm sure you have an agent, but how do you select the roles that come across your plate, or things you might want to take, or maybe not select them? What makes you latch on to one? Is hey, I want to do this project.
I think one that has variety, not just vocal variety, but emotional variety, because it's boring to play the same level all the time. And I like to, because I'm known as doing the big voice guys. I like to do shows where I did. I don't know if you guys remember Digimon.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I voiced Ogremon, Sagittariumon, Parrotmon, Ohuramon,
I wanted to do Jamaican man, but they didn't have one, right? So, but anyway, I finished doing Ogremon. You know, hey, where are those kids? Where are those kids? You know, Ogremon was a bad guy, became a good guy. Yeah. But I had finished my session as Ogremon, and then the director said, "Beau, do you do children's walla? Have you ever done children's walla? You know, walla is like the background sounds, right?" And I said, "Children's walla? What?" Yeah. And he said, yeah, I said, no. He said, "You want to try it?" I said, "Oh, okay, I'll try it." So I went in the booth, and so this is what I did. I said, "Hey, where's everybody at? All the kids are getting free candy, and I'm not getting any free candy. I want candy." And he said, "Oh, okay, that'll work." so if you ever watch some Digimon, you might be hearing me talk as a little kid.
Thank you.
Okay, man. All right.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you all of you for coming up and asking questions. And most importantly, thank you, Beau, for being here.
It's my pleasure. You guys are a great audience. I really appreciate you coming and sharing a few moments with me. It's always a joy to talk with the fans, because I have a career because of you guys. You know, so thank you.